You're listening to Mentors Military. It's Robert Gowan. We're sitting here at 15 Perry Street, and my sidekick for these podcast episodes is the one and only Jason Belford.
Thank you.
So in this episode here, we've got a guest who traveled a pretty good distance. And Ray, welcome to the Mentors Military Podcast, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Nice to see you guys in person finally.
It's
I've
kind
heard
of
your voices a bunch. And, yeah.
Well, and I've seen your photos like on Instagram or something like that. But you're right, it's kind of weird, you know. And I've had people that like meet me or talk with me on the phone, and then they'll be like, this is like really weird because, you know, I listen to you and then I can actually see it. That's weird for me, by the way, you know, because I always listen to my own voice.
I never do. When I first time I
head.
heard the podcast, I was like, wow, that's going to go horribly.
So we'll kick this thing off and roll into it and stuff. So tell me, where is it, tell them, I guess, where is it that you came from?
Yellowstone National Park, so just outside the park, north side, Montana side. Yeah, that's where we live, and I work there.
Love that whole area, by the way. We went out to Wyoming, Jackson Hole, and we went to Jackson and stayed in the city and stuff, but tried to get out of there and go out and hike and all that. And probably, you know, it was last summer, and it was probably one of the best vacations that we ever took. You know, it was just me and my wife and another couple. Because we were able to check out. As soon as you drove out of Jackson, the telephone didn't work, you know, the cell phone didn't work, you lost signal. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. It was like around, I think it was more like April maybe or something like that, May. The bears were just coming out of hibernation. So we had our spray, you know, and I had my friend who was on point. And he always had his hand on the trigger, you know, ready to go, just in case. And of course, I looked at that as being, you know, with him being on point and having the spray, I'd have probably a good 15-second head start that I hauling ass behind him, you know, with me ahead of him, or however you want to look at it, you know. And so hopefully everything worked out well. But man, we had such a blast. I mean, you could use your phone for photo taking, but that was about it.
Yeah,
it was beautiful.
Oh, it is, yeah. You know, the Jackson side, that's the rich side there, right?
Yeah,
that's billionaires.
The Tetons,
Yeah, billionaires on that side. Montana side.
I'm not a billionaire, just so we clarify.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
But beautiful, you know, for vacation. Montana side, you know, it's a little more of the Carhartt crowd there, you know.
That's my crowd right there.
Yeah, it's
sorry, Rob.
But it's beautiful, yeah. And bears, I got 2 little kids, and hiking with, you know, your kids in like grizzly country is like scary, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, just they're one bite for that bear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just put them down.
Now, for the most part, though, they don't bother you unless you really mess with them, right?
Oh, yeah. That's
or is that
bears,
true?
You know, no, it's like any wild animal.
Yeah.
I mean, they you know, they don't want anything to do with the humans, right?
Yeah.
And you know, most injuries, deaths occur from you know, like surprise encounters. It's usually a sow, like a mom, protecting the, you know, the cubs. That's the predominant, you know, cause of, you know, human death or injury. Yeah.
Most of the ones I've seen, they may take off after you, but then they're just kind of like trying to scare you. And as long as you back off.
I've watched Revenant, all right? So, you guys aren't convinced me. Bears are not good for me.
Yeah, the bluff. So you're talking about the bluff charge, right? The bluff charge is, you know, something they do, it's behavior, but it never happened to me. I don't know that, you know, I don't know how I'd respond to a bluff charge. I don't know that I'd be able to stand in there. You know what I mean? You're not supposed to run, but you're saying it, and then there's, you know, you're really out there with them, and it's like,
Did you ever see that video? I don't know if it necessarily went viral, but somebody shared it with me prior to us going to Wyoming, and I think it actually happened in Montana. It was a mountain lion. And this guy was walking down this path. Did you see this video?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it's like chasing or kind of like stalking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he, I guess, came up on her cubs or, you know, her pups or whatever they're called. And she got really nervous about it. So he's walking backward. Of course, he's filming this, you know, like I guess with his, you know, camera or whatever, his phone. And at first he's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And he's just kind of trying to walk away, and she keeps walking after him. And this goes on for probably a good, I don't know, 30 minutes or something like that. Until one time he just decided to like get mad or something. And at that point, she turns around, she heads back to wherever it is she came from.
Well, I figure if I ever got put in that situation, my kids or family who's with me might find out, what the 3 Ds are real quick. Distance, direction, description. As I'm getting the hell out of there,
right? Oh well, just like what you're talking about. We go on a trail. I know this sounds really bad, but we go on those back trails and everything, and we see these families with kids and everything. And my buddy would be like, "Let them get on ahead." Let them.
That's right. Yeah, and with cougars too. We track cougars.
Track. Cougars.
Yeah. So we got
like you're looking for them.
We got wildlife biologists in the park, and we try to collar them, right? And not all of them, right? But some of them, so we kind of know what's going on. And one thing we've learned from that is that cougars are often very close to areas where there's lots of visitors. Like they'll hang out near a trail on a carcass, and so they're often in pretty close proximity to people. And kind of my takeaway from that is, they're not vicious. I want to go kill a human today, right? They're just for the most part they're out there. People are by them sometimes, and they kind of keep to themselves. They don't really see us as food.
My take on that is they're like, I'm just looking for targeted opportunity.
Let me go juck with this guy named Jason here.
Right. I'm looking for that little 4-year-old kid that gets too far from his parents.
So have you gotten to the television show Yellowstone?
Yeah, I've seen parts of that. It's like on one of those shows that I don't think they don't really film in the area.
Oh, they don't? I thought that they. I thought the house I thought is actually in Montana.
Parts of it are,
or Wyoming or something. Yeah,
parts of it are, I think, and there's just another movie.
Dude, don't ruin it for me. The beauty. The beauty. Well, no, I'm just saying that the beauty of the area and everything. So is that being filmed there then?
I think some of the shots are.
Okay.
But I think that it's common that you see a lot of movies that are set in Montana.
A lot of them right here in Atlanta. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Cool. With the 1883 series of the Yellowstone,
I haven't started watching that yet.
No. I've watched 4 seasons, and you'll know your 4 shows. You know why I want to tell you this, but Marcus, the owner of Limitless Canine, that's where Havoc came from.
Yeah,
Havoc's dad is actually the dog in that show.
Oh, well, then I'm going to have to watch. Well, I was going to watch it anyway because I've already gotten through the 4 seasons of Yellowstone and thought everybody's saying, "Oh, you got to go." Now you got to watch 1883 because it's the precursor or whatever. But so what do you? Someone who lives there, what do you think of it?
Oh, it's beautiful. Anything though, it's easy to get desensitized.
Yeah, but what about the prevailing attitudes and everything that's within the show about the people?
It's I've just seen bits and pieces. I mean, it's a it's kind of a it is interesting. I'll tell you that. It's a good show. It's well done.
Yeah, yeah. Do you own any horses or anything or?
No, I got a dirt bike and a lot of guns.
That's what I'm talking about.
But horses, man, that's you got to have a little money to have horses.
Yeah.
We got to live in Jackson like he does.
I didn't live there. Let's be clear. And I went there during. Actually, what's beautiful is that, and it would just probably help my experience. That I was right at the conclusion of ski season. And right before summer session, so everything was discounted big time.
Oh yeah,
because they just need people to keep the revenue going. So tourists that come in, they give you these major discounts and such, but it was still expensive.
Yeah,
while we were there.
Yeah, but
is that where you're from?
No, I'm from South Texas, but I don't really claim it. I got out of there.
Yeah, you don't have the Texas accent.
Yeah, I know it was.
San Antonio, when you say South, like Corpus Christi or San Antonio?
Like Corpus Christi.
Okay.
Yeah. Out there, kind of in the brush country outside Corpus. But it's Montana's about as different as you could possibly get from Corpus. But always like the mountains.
I don't want to go too far ahead because we're almost like fast forwarding, but. Is it because you wanted to literally get off the reservation and okay?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm finding is that a lot of guys, they literally just want to check out, and that can be good, could be bad, just depending upon mental situations and everything.
Yeah.
Because then you literally have time to get inside your own head.
Yeah. No, we're out there. We're not too like we're in a rural area, but not like totally like way up.
So you're not like literally off the grid.
No.
Okay.
That's admirable for people that do that.
Like you said, get in your own head. Like the idle mind is the devil's playground. You know what I mean? That's how you literally drive yourself crazy and get in trouble and all that. So I don't know what I like peace and quiet, but thankfully when I'm by myself, I got my dog because he keeps me busy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I found like, in Wyoming, again, we were on vacation, so it's a very different thing. But just the beauty of the outdoors, I could totally see moving out there and getting away from everything that is the world that, as we know it today, that's electronic. Whether it's television, radio, social media, whatever. I mean, I could totally see immersing yourself in that beauty.
Oh yeah. I love
the outdoors.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. We fish, we hike, backpack, we do all kinds of stuff. We love the outdoors. My wife and I, our kids.
You should grow just like a grizzliest of all grizzly beards.
I know. Yeah, that's You get kind of been through phases, but we love it. I tell you what, if you're not into winter sports, it's a long winter up there.
Yeah.
So, you see people that, maybe come in, they go there in the summer, right? Where it's beautiful. I mean, you're like, oh my God, this is paradise. And
which summers are like what, 6 weeks long?
Exactly. Yeah. And then, they move there and then, you're like, hey, this is, you're pretty far north up here and it's a tough place to be. So if you're not into winter sports like skiing or, if you're not into like the things, the outdoors,
as well as
you're not going to do well.
Attire, clothing, and such that goes with that to understand what that really means. Because what kind of snow? I mean, feet like 6,
sure,
8, yeah.
Oh well, in the mountains, I mean, it's crazy, but down in the valley bottoms, it's not horrible.
Yeah,
but
they call them in Arizona. When I'd go out there and jump with the RC, in different times of year, when you get out there in the wintertime, all the people from up north they call them snowbirds. And in Arizona, they have like all these open, just rows and miles of nothing but RVs and stuff. Like people
come down to Florida too. That's the whole
I'm like, is that kind of how people get out up there?
You get a lot of people who are summer homes up there. A lot of wealth, like near Yellowstone National Park. I mean, they're pretty desirable areas, just like on the Jackson side, right? So you get a lot of wealth, and then the summer you get the people that are there with their second homes, their vacation homes. But then winter's just the locals, right? It's the people who don't have money to go somewhere else.
To get up there this summer,
Yeah, that's right. So it's good, but kind of the other point on like getting away from people, like it's population densities are pretty low up there.
Yeah,
and I like it that way. I don't like crowds. I don't like big masses of people, man, coming through, Atlanta and the airport yesterday. I was like, man, this is the most people I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I bet.
I was like, I was getting kind of wigged out,
So, did you grow up your whole life in Texas, or?
Yeah, a lot of it. I mean, we kind of moved around when I was real young, but then, like when I was pretty much.
So it's where you graduated high school.
Yeah. Most of my life that, adult or younger life that I can remember was all in Texas.
Family still there?
They were, and they ended up in Colorado Springs.
That's kind of odd too, because I have friends that went from Texas to Colorado Springs, and then some went from Colorado Springs to Texas. It seems to be a transitional or the route, I guess, that a lot of people go.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
It is, yeah.
Because you're going from extreme heat to cold.
Well, I think for a lot of people going from, Texas, they vacation in Colorado, right? And so people kind of like, hey, this is cool. Like, why the hell do I live in Texas? So they end up in Springs or in Denver, one of those areas. And Springs is a big military town too. It's cool. I mean, I like the vibe there. So my parents retired there, and it's cool. But it's busy too. It's real crowded there.
I got some friends live in Texas. My old Ranger buddy Pete and his ex-wife Claire. They live in couldn't even tell you, but it's outside of Houston. And I went there to see him a couple months ago, and I was like, I could live here.
Yeah.
But I do live in Georgia, and we have like every season, every other day. Yeah. So
it's definitely hotter there and more humid, if you can believe that, I think. Yeah, I mean, I lived that just outside of Houston for 5.5 years or something like that. And it absolutely is great there. You know, I mean, you have all the types of things that you do here in the Atlanta area, you know, with, you know, restaurants and shows and sports and everything that you want to get yourself into. But again, I don't know if I could fully immerse myself and jump into it, like let's just go out to Montana and get away from everything like big city and the comforts of life and live out with nature.
I love
in the cold.
Pine Mountain's good for me. You know what I mean? I'm like,
yeah, I'm okay to visit it in short spurts.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I could do it. So well, tell me, I mean, after high school, what made you end up going into the Army in the first place? So what was it that attracted you to that direction? Just to get the hell out of Dodge? Is that kind of what it was? Or?
Well, no, I you know, growing up there, like South Texas, like outside Corpus Christi, I mean, there's a big military presence,
Navy,
you know, all over that area. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And my father, he was a career naval officer. So, you know, I knew what the military was and, you know, always was around it. So I had a sense of like wanting to do that, just not knowing exactly what, you know, which route and like what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know, so like I was, you know, I had that all in mind I think most of my life that I was going to go down that path. And it was just a matter of like figuring out like, what exactly. And then, you know, I'm at the age where, you know, 9/11 was right there. Like I was a freshman in college when that happened. And I was like, all right.
So you ended up going into college then?
Yeah.
Which one? Where'd you start?
Texas A&M.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went there, did their like Corps Cadets. Mm-hmm. They had a good program.
Roll Tide.
And okay. It's did that and and that's where, you know, and then, you know, I was a freshman when 9/11 happened, and I was at, you know, one point was like, all right, you know, I want to go enlist and you know, get in the fight.
You didn't know which branch at that time frame, or did you already have it figured out?
You know, I was actually leaning toward the Army, and you know, I kind of started thinking, you know, Marines were, you know, I like the Marines. It was, you know, my dad being Navy, and then, you know, Marines and Navy. But the Army's the path I ended up going down. Some of that was because of you know, friends kind of told me about the Marines just being kind of the broke branch, you know, of the military.
You ain't wrong.
And, you know, and not, you know, they were specifically like, it was like, hey, you know, the Marines, they got night vision goggles from Vietnam. And like, they're like, you know.
They do get a lot of the leftovers, especially from the Army.
That's, well, you know, that's where it goes to.
They're still rocking ships, 7 Bravos.
The naval budget goes to ships and fighter, you know, aircraft. And then the SEALs get, you know, more money than they know what to do with. And then, you know, all the little scraps go to the, you know, go to the Marines. So, and you know, I think it makes them tougher, but you know, I like the Army. Yeah. And then we had instructors in college that, you know, I got exposed to, and both were old, like Ranger Regiment guys. You know, one was a NCO, Vic Hoyos was his name. And then the other was a captain. His name was Dario Lorenzetti. And, those guys were just, they were like larger than life. And like Lorenzetti was like old school Ranger, had like the mohawk.
High and
tight. Yeah.
Just, 4 on top.
Yeah.
Spit shine boots.
Scoopers. Yeah. Like real squared away.
It can stand on its own.
Yeah. Yeah. Like like pre-GWAT Ranger Regiment.
Yep.
You know.
I know him well.
Yeah.
Blue book by the letter.
Yeah. He was hardcore. And then the NCO, Vic Hoyos, you know, he was, I think he had been in Grenada and Panama, you know, had real like combat time with the regiment. And so we all like, that dude was God, you know, cause this was like before 9/11 and everybody started getting combat tours. Yeah. So like you had your CIB pre 9/11.
Yeah. Likely Panama.
Yeah, you were God, man. Like whatever you were saying, everybody's like,
Had a little gold star.
Yeah, jump star, man. Yeah, the combat jump star, right? Yeah. So, we looked at those guys, and it was just, I want to be that dude.
Yeah.
So that's where like the kind of whole Ranger Regiment idea, really sunk in pretty deep from just those guys, and exposure to them. Hoy was, that instructor, and he was quite a bit older, right? Like he'd been, he was probably in his, like close to 40 at the time. And like, he'd take us out. We were like 19, 18, 19, like real fit kids. And he would just smoke the shit out of us. Like we go run with him and just, he would just break us off, man. So, I'm thinking now I'm 40. I'm like, oh, dude, that dude's superhuman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's the hardest part of my job as a first sergeant, just keeping up with those young guys, man.
Yeah.
I'm like,
It's a young man's game.
First sergeant's got to go out there and do it. I'm like, it's just a grind.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Especially, when you're like, as you get older, you're like just putting all those miles on and jumps and all that stuff, man. It's incredible. So like the guys that are, I think those senior NCOs that can still like just haul ass, man. It's cool. It's cool to see. And you appreciate it even more as you get older. You get to be that age and you're like, how's that dude? Anyway, so it's guys like that I was like, man, I want to be them, and that really got me like motivated.
But when 9/11 hit and you're a freshman, I mean, you have a choice at that point. All right, do I go join the fight or do I go on and become an officer, which is the route really you're on at that moment? So you just wanted to get in it. Bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of guys were.
What were those guys thinking though? What were they mentoring you guys?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of people thought, well, there's no way this is going to go on for 20 years. Right. You were like, dude, this is this will be over in 6 months. Like I'm going to miss it.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to miss it, right? So, So I went to Hoyos, the NCO, specifically the combat vet, and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to enlist." And I thought because he was an enlisted dude, I thought he was going to be like, "Yeah." He was like, "No." He's like, "Stick around.
Yeah.
Get your degree." And I was like, "But the war," and he was like, "No, the war's going to be there. War's going to be there. I promise." And I was like, "No. You don't know that." And
meanwhile,
he was,
we're getting ready for Ukraine at this moment.
Right? Yeah. It's like,
anyway, go back.
There's always, So, I mean, for an enlisted guy and, combat vet to kind of be like, hey, slow down there, high speed.
Yeah, that's right.
You're going to be fine. You'll get yours. And, so I was just like, I don't know what he's talking about, but I'm just going to listen. And it worked out.
That's good you did.
Yeah.
That's good on him for being that kind of mentor right up front.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's a good start.
It's a good guy. Yeah, absolutely. And I ran into him overseas too.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I ran into him overseas. He was super secret squirrel at the time, like, using a whole different name and all that shit, He's a good dude. And then Dario Lorenzetti, the old school Ranger captain, he got killed in Afghanistan. Suicide bomber. It was down, and it was kind of a big event when it happened. But, it was like, man, everybody I knew ended up in the fight, and I think a lot of us that were in part of that, kind of in at that time or getting in at that time. I mean, everybody had tours, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody. Mm-hmm. So it was an interesting time. I kind of look back at the last maybe even like 5 or 10 years and a little different ball game,
Right.
We're like, man, Army base in 2006, 2007, everybody had a CIB, everybody had a combat patch. It's, it's a different ball game, man.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking about this stuff, man. I'm going to go down to Benning today. And I haven't been.
You need to.
I haven't been there for long. I haven't been there since Ranger School.
Yeah. No, you need to go down there. It's changed a lot, since that time frame for sure. But you ought to just go down there to hollow ground and just kind of walk it.
Yeah, Jason's probably like, you're crazy. I walk it go down there for fun. Someday, Jason.
Yeah, it will be,
man.
It's true. It's true.
You ain't wrong. I'm changing out as a 2 years as a first sergeant on Tuesday, and And you know, over the last few days, probably a week, I've been reflecting on like, you know, what got me here and, you know, all the things. And you ain't wrong. Like, hell, I ain't gone yet. And I'm already about to miss it. You know, I mean, I definitely understand what you're being, but if I could just skip through Fort Benning and go straight to the brown fence, probably do that.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, so, you know, I did, you know, like, man, PT sessions, just crazy PT sessions. That's kind of what I remember about school and like being with like those guys, those old school, like Ranger Regiment dudes, was just total crazy smoke sessions.
What year did you go to RIP?
Oh, so we, right on the officer side, you know, it's kind of a different track, right? But yeah, so I went to the infantry course as soon as I graduated, like 2005, you know, like finished school and then like came right to Benning, like within a week. And then infantry course, airborne school, ranger school, like all just stacked all those up, like boom, 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 boom.
That's a good time.
And it was, yeah, it was. And, yeah, it was, you know, it was intense, man. So, you know, Ranger School is the first time I ever, you know, I felt like, you know, we had like smoke sessions, right, in school.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
But like I'd never, and man, like the physical challenges were like not that big of a deal, but like being hungry, man. That was the first time I was ever hungry. Like Americans.
It's funny what you remember, right?
Americans, like you don't know, like most people don't know hunger.
Yeah.
Like real hunger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people do in other parts of the world or like Ranger students. And that was one thing that I was like, again, cause like growing up, like even in school, smoke sessions. When I was growing up, I did boxing and like on this whole like old school hardcore.
Your nose is in good shape for it.
It is, right? Yeah, I was pretty good. No, not really. I could get my ass kicked all the time. Man, so I was just like all the physical stuff and like hardship and just, you know, getting, you know, literally or metaphorically punched in the face all the time.
Yeah.
That wasn't a big deal. It was, man, being hungry though. I was like, I'd never been hungry before. That messed with me. Like I almost got peered out of the first phase of Ranger School, or you know, like you get your evals after each phase, you know, and I was like right on the edge, and I was like, okay, I had to like step outside myself and like do a little soul searching. And I was like, I'm being a little bitch, like I'm being an asshole, you know. And that was like a wake up call for me. And then I did really well after that, but like I'd never been hungry.
No
before.
recycle?
No, straight through.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is like
very good.
Yeah. Which almost feels like cheating, right? Like you're supposed to spend
the whole experience.
Yeah, Ranger School is supposed to be like 6 months, right?
I went twice. I got the full experience.
Yeah, that's right.
First time was just a trial. Let me see what this is all about.
I was like, you know, maybe I'll come back and do this later.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So that was the one thing that was tough for me. But like I think, you know, growing up, college, young, you know, life, high school, all that, like I'd had a lot of like, you know, like a real physical guy and you know, boxing, football, that kind of stuff. And so I was.
Well, you had instructors that were probably teaching at that level of physicality as well.
Oh yeah. That's what I said. We go do a 13-mile run. Yeah. You know, like on a Monday morning before class.
Yeah.
You know, in college with the, you know, the NCO and the captain, and it was like, you know, so that part was okay, man. I felt pretty, physically pretty ready for everything that came at me.
Ranger need to eat.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
When I went to Ranger School, I was told this on my podcast the first time. When I was in Afghanistan, my first trip, you know, like we would eat MREs and you might not eat, you know, like you'd starve. And then when I went to Ranger School, I was like, we could do these a day. 4 hours sleep. Hell yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we right. Like the whole idea with Ranger School, right, is like you're replicating sort of kind of some like that combat stress. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, I was like, we're the American Army. We're not going to like run out of food in a war. And oh boy, was dude. Yeah. Like you're talking about, I was on one of those long tours in Afghanistan where it was like, I'm so hungry, man. Like for real. And like supply bird got shot up and we're fucked. You know, like there ain't no,
We had a
you know,
CDS strap burn in.
Yeah.
It's like, there goes my food.
Yeah, that's it. You know, you go into a village like begging the locals for food. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's you know, that whole element. Like, I never had that in Iraq. I was never hungry in Iraq, but Afghanistan, man, I was.
Oh yeah, definitely dealt with it there.
Yeah, and so like the younger guys that had not been through any experience like that, like I don't think, you know, AIT or anything like that. You know, the infantry, like kind of the baseline infantry stuff I don't think really, they don't really hit the hunger element very well.
No.
And so I think, again, if like you haven't been exposed to it, and then the first time you're dealing with it in combat, that's not good, you know? And so those guys, I think a lot of them didn't, you know, obviously didn't fare very well.
Yeah.
You know? So good on Ranger School for, I don't know if the hunger thing still, like I kind of.
Oh, it's still there. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, all right. That's good, man. That shit.
That's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
Yeah, food
Okay.
deprivation.
Yeah. That's good.
So
That's good.
where did you end up going after Ranger School then? Because you didn't go right to Road.
Yeah. I went to 10th Mountain Division.
Okay.
And then, so that was my first tour. And I picked.
Now wait, 10th then was that
They only had 3
Polk?
brigades. Well, what year was it?
06, 05, 06, yeah. So I was a drone.
Oh yeah,
You were a drone.
Yeah.
So you're in
I
3rd
was a
brigade.
drone. Yeah.
2nd and 3rd
Third
brigade.
brigade, yeah.
Yeah, I was in 4th brigade. We were the bastard children down in Fort Polk.
Oh yeah, nice. So you know, at the kind of end of college, you pick, you know, which units you want to go to, and I had drum up there because I thought drum was still like real ski troops. I kind of I didn't get the memo on that.
Like the 101st is still airborne. Sorry, Rocket Songs. I didn't mean to ruin that for you.
And then, you know, so drum, they're still, 10th Mountain's still doing, because it's, you know, drum is brutal. Like the winter up there is horrible. So they're still, you know, getting a lot
Light
of
infantry.
good cold weather training, and they're out there in the snow, and there's some terrain and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I was, you know, it worked out pretty good, but, you know, I thought I was going to get the ski training, never got that. But I went to mountaineering school. That was cool. That was,
that's
that
cool.
was something I really,
How was that?
really wanted to do.
in terms of like just dealing with the cold, and you guys didn't have to dump into one of those holes and into the water and stuff, right?
No,
Get
we did a
yourself out
river
and-
crossing.
Yeah.
You know, and this is up in Alaska, right? So like all, you know, it's cold.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the one big like water event was, you know, you do some rope bridges and then you just do river crossing. We were more or less in the river.
What kind of gear did you have?
What kind of gear?
Yeah, like you have Gore-Tex and everything. Were you all nice and cozy and warm? I guess.
No, man, no. It was
No snivel when you're walking.
Yeah. Yeah. It was it was all like, you know, it was kind of Army school where it's like all just kind of the basics. But yeah, I remember being cold and, you know, wet a lot. It was it was Alaska, so it was like a summer. Like we were there in the summer, but you know, mountains in Alaska.
Oh, it was beautiful there.
Yeah. It's never terribly warm up there, but we did, you know, so I did that. And then I worked, you know, because this is in between. Well, you know, I was a climbing ranger for the National Park Service too. Like I kind of did that before, you know, I was active duty. So I had a lot of like good exposure to, you know, being in the mountains
Outdoors,
and just
mountains,
like,
yeah.
like knowing what to do, like rope work, you know,
that's
like
a
just
big
knowing
deal
your
in
way
mountain
around.
warfare.
Yeah. Knowing your way around ropes and, you know,
That must
how
have
to-
helped you a lot in mountain phase then.
yeah, I knew I was pretty good with my knots, you know. And, yeah, so that stuff I was really into it, you know. And then, you know, that was you know, I wanted to go to Afghanistan too because, you know, that's kind of where I think the fight truly started, but then, you know, the whole mountain environment I thought was really cool. Like yeah.
People ask me, man, how do you make it as a ranger? You know what I mean? And I was like, well, because I never had to go anywhere stationed where it's cold. And I didn't go to ranger school in the wintertime because if either one of those would have taken place, I still wouldn't be sitting here today.
Yeah.
So good on you, brother.
Yeah, no, that's good, man. I'm not hot weather, dude.
I'm
Man,
a
I
hot
like,
weather.
dude. Oh my
I'm
God.
freezing now.
Oh yeah, oh, no, that's where like I want to go to second bat because I was like, dude, I can't handle Georgia, man. Georgia's too hot. The summer here, no.
It's a pretty cold day today, though.
Yeah, it is.
We brought all this here right for you.
I know. I flew in and I flew in.
Snow
I was
flurries.
driving through like a little blizzard going on last
Yeah.
night. Like,
We wanted to give you the full experience and bring you in. Welcome.
You gotta be kidding
Or
me.
maybe you're the one that brought that in.
Put that evil on
Yeah.
me, Ricky Bobby.
So, yeah, we, did a bunch of stuff in the mountains and like really, really liked that environment. Like,
Yeah.
I don't mind being cold. I kind of like feel good like on rock, like
Yeah.
I could climb a rock face. And
Did they
feel-
give you a
feel pretty
trinket or
good about
anything when you complete the school, or?
No.
You get that the National Guard. I never understood this for the damn life of me. But so I went to the National Guard sniper course in Arkansas, and one of the instructors there has a ram head, and if you're in the if you go through the summer winter course there, the mountain warfare course, and you are National Guard, you can wear the ram head. But if you go through the course and you're active duty, you can't. I'm like, that makes no sense.
Well, do they issue you
There's
the
no
ram
badge.
head?
No,
there's
there's
no
no badge,
you
no.
don't get no badge for going to that school.
Yeah,
which
no
is
tab,
kinda,
If I would have got the ram head, I would have went to that damn school. That's a cool badge.
Yeah, right? I think so. That's where the Army. It's
Yeah, it's all about the
care
color.
about the badges.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
it's like-
Pathfinder's got a cool ass.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Without that badge, who would want to go to Pathfinder school?
Right.
That's totally
Well, like,
exactly.
what is that even? I don't even know. So yeah, that was probably the coolest. I think the coolest school, like Army school, I went to was that the mountaineering one. I like that a lot. And
How long was it total?
it not more than 3 weeks. I mean,
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah, like 2 to 3 weeks somewhere in there. I can't remember, but
Yeah.
You do like I never went to this one. No, that's why I like asking questions about.
No, that's cool.
Did you do like a lower and a upper style, like where you do like knots and all that stuff down here, and you practice before you go up to what it?
It was all real like applied, where it'd be like, all right, we're going to teach you how to do anchors, and then you guys are going to go rappel off your own anchors down this big rock mountain, big rock face. So a lot of this, kind of the basics that you get in Ranger school too, with like rock climbing, rappelling, just general road work, fixed lines, all that, but a lot more of a like true mountain environment,
Well, yeah, I'm kind of a professional at rappelling. I went to air assault school.
Oh. So you could be assigned to the.
I could probably assign to the
101st.
I could be right in the 101st. Applying applications.
Yeah. And so, it's like one of those skills you get and you're like, damn it, I'm going to use this, like no matter what, I'm going to look for opportunities to use this, But then, we got to my first tour in Afghanistan. We were in the Hindu Kush range and like way up in Kunar province. And then it was like, oh, we actually need this. Yeah. Like this is a real thing, So
it's some real rescue Randy shit right there.
Yeah. Yeah. We carried ropes and we did rope work. We did, fairly intense, like, rock movements. We did rope bridges. I mean, we did donkey and mule resupply. It was the real deal.
That's when it pays off, when you're able to actually apply it.
Yeah. It feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good. Like any skill, like you want to use that skill.
Yeah. Imagine all of those guys that were in a ram and they never got a chance to do any of that. Right?
Yeah.
Checkmate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wear your ram. Okay.
That's where Santiago fell the 500 feet, 250 the first time, and then another about 400 feet when he died. Annabelle, Santiago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's
sniper
that,
partner,
Jason?
Up there in the Kush.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It was a rod, and they were walking at night.
Yeah.
And that's where he fell. So
Yeah, we had.
it's a bad place, man.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah, walking around in the dark in that environment is it's incredibly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Even with all the training, I think units they're there that first couple weeks. A lot of like accidents, a lot of injuries from just people not being acclimatized, not being used to that environment, and there's not a lot of. It was just the learning curve is huge, right? And again, you learn pretty quickly. You need to be moving around at night whenever you can, just because daylight's bad news. You're always being watched. They're always maneuvering on you, in many of those places. So you got to be able to move in the dark. And, yeah, we had guys falling off of cliffs. We had guys, we had guys drowning in those rivers, those mountain streams are, no joke. You get runoff and
Starts to thaw.
Yeah, that's right. Runoff, man, is, and you get kind of the May, June window where all those, like those streams are, maybe late in the years, those things are, you could jump over them. Yeah. But like in May, dude fell in and he was gone.
Yeah, you're gone.
We spent 2 days looking for him.
Damn.
Yeah. So like that's the kind of things happening in the Hindu Kush where I went for that first tour. But
we had a guy walking across a little bridge, was carrying the 50 cal sniper rifle and fell in, and he got out, but he let her ride to the bottom.
Yeah.
See ya.
Yeah, man. So the river's really something, just like going uphill, like strapping a bunch of stuff on and trying to just go up a big ass mountain. I mean, that's something that, the first few movements were pretty nasty.
And you watch the Afghans just.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You're like, we're pretty fit, but and on the officer side too, right? Like it's your job to develop like missions and like to have those missions actually be realistic. And so I think a lot of units went through the first few weeks in a Kush or any really like severe mountain environment where, the senior NCOs and the officers are learning too, if they haven't been there before. And so, you're like, hey, we're going to go do this 10-click movement to the top of this mountain. And about a third of the way into it, you're like, oh shit, abort, abort. This is a bad idea.
Traumatizing is everything too. Like,
yeah. And you got, especially kids that are carrying mortar tubes and machine guns and like all that. I mean, you're just breaking people off, right? And then you don't want to get to the objective and like guys are just completely done. Like they can barely stand. Mm-hmm. That's obviously not the not the mission you want to create for your guys.
We would literally move a K at a time and take a 10-minute break, K at a time, like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to. So you learn to pace yourself, and then you get good, right? You get good at it. It just takes some time to get your legs under you. And then, by the end of the tour, like my first tour was a real long one. You've developed like the conditioning. Your lungs are ready for it too, right? Like the elevation, that's another thing that takes some time, and like just getting that kind of endurance into you, know, where your legs, your quads, your core, like all that stuff is just kind of conditioned for that. So it took some time, but we got really good at it, and you don't know until you come up against like the unit you're ripping out with, and them dudes show up and like they're in the learning curve, and you're like, hey, here, we're going to take you up to this village. And we all just, we all go flying up the mountain, and like you turn around and you're like, oh shit. Right. Like, where'd the 173rd go?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what happened.
Man, they're gone.
Same thing.
So it was cool. The Hindu Kush is I was there for a long time on my first tour, and then I went back to it. But that was, I think now kind of back to the theme we were talking about earlier with Benning, I feel lucky to have gotten to go there, as weird as that sounds. It was savage. It was beautiful. And it was a real fight out there,
Real infantry.
Yeah, exactly. It was light infantry. I didn't touch a vehicle for months on end. We were just on foot. So I think guys that, light infantry dudes, like, I hate vehicles. I'm like, ugh, so it was cool, be like truly fighting out of your ruck. And
my platoon sergeant Dempster at the time, he made the statement. He's like, you are doing something that will probably never happen again, and that's being a real infantryman.
Yeah.
Right. Like, well, I'm glad I could be proud of that.
At the time, you're hungry as hell. You're broke. You're smoked all the time, man. Like you just,
did it make you feel better?
Not at the moment. No.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Now it does, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not
I'm
till
like
after.
him. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It's not till after that you're like, dude, yeah, we were lucky. Man.
Yeah, that's right.
We were lucky. But yeah, at the time, like you're going through like your body's, yeah, you know, right. Your you got the calorie imbalance, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just can't put enough calories in.
And the new guys coming in, you'd be like, they got plenty of calories.
Yeah, you're like, they show up, they're all like built, you know. You're like,
They're
oh, that ain't gonna last long, man.
My clothes smell like ammonia, you know.
Yeah,
About to beat you up for your new uniform.
yeah, yeah. We were doing, man. I was part of I think we were like one of the first units deployed with the ACUs, and which thank God that whole era is long gone. But you know, we were. We're running around in the mountains and like trying out the ACUs. And the one design flaw we figured out quickly was like the crotch was not well sewn. It wasn't really reinforced. And so it's a weird like one-off thing, but we were constantly running around with like giant holes in the interior of our crotches. And like everybody on like in an environment like that is going commando, right?
Oh yeah.
So like dudes are running around with just junk hanging out, like on patrol.
I haven't worn underwear in 17 years. There you go, Rob.
Yeah.
TMI.
So we could not keep the crotches of our uniforms intact. I mean, it's the weirdest thing. And then, you like, I mean, that's okay if it's like running an ambush patrol, but you're like, okay, we got to go to the village and talk to this dude today, and like half your platoon is...
The visual on that. I mean, right?
Ain't even wrong. You'd be like, hey, he's got 550 cord.
And you're like, hey man, we're the American Army. We're gonna, we got all this money. We're gonna fix some stuff around here. We're gonna make life better for you. And
Right
like
after I fix my pants.
Yeah. And I had like a village elder tell me like exactly that, where he's like, hey man, it's just. I'm like looking at you guys, and it's like I'm just having a hard time believing you. So that was and then, it was back to the hunger.
My eyes
the
are
hunger
up here.
Yeah, you're still right. Yeah, like yeah, dude, we're the American Army. We're supposed to, have it all together here, but just the mountain environment, I think, has a way of just stripping away everything down to like the base elements, and it's hard to get resupply. Weather's screwing things up constantly, and it's just so it's surreal. It's like that, like almost this archaic way of fighting, when you're way out in the mountains like that. And so I look back on it and I love it. At the time I was like, when I go home, I'm moving to Kansas.
I can see for miles.
Yeah, I never want to see a mountain ever again. Never. Yeah.
Yes. That's
So,
right.
yeah.
And yet you didn't do that.
Yeah, no. And then I kind of came back to the mountains eventually, but that part of Afghanistan was just incredible.
How did you rate, like, after this time period, looking back, because I know he has some really fond memories of 10th Mountain, but how do you kind of look back at that period?
It was it was rough. I mean, so we ended up doing a 16-month tour, better part of like 6 months. And we were in the Korengal Valley, which was, ended up getting kind of a lot of press with, there was Sebastian Younger, this journalist embedded with the unit that replaced us, and then did this movie called Restrepo.
That was my ACO commander when I got to the regiment.
Who?
Got to 3rd Battalion, the company commander.
Oh, Kearney?
Yeah.
Is that
Major Kearney?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So those guys replaced us, and they thought they were there first, but we were there first.
And here's the real story.
Yeah. So we were in the Korengal, and it was messy. I mean, but it was a real light infantry fight out there, and the whole valley. I mean, it was, there was like, we were kind of doing coin initially, and then the whole thing just turned, like, it just devolved into like just one giant shooting range. So it was like what a war was supposed to be to me, and. We were truly, it was like we were in the fight, and we were getting like, maybe 3 or 4 fights a day, and they may not be like gigantic, right? But there was, it was like pretty good firefights, and, the enemy out there was, they know what they were doing.
They know the terrain better than you do.
Yeah, they know the terrain. They've had a lot of practice. They're fit as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, them dudes grew up out there, right? And a lot of the guys that, were fighting were from the area.
They moved up a mountain with a machine gun and 2,000 rounds like I'm just walking with nothing in my hands.
Yeah. Yeah. And we had ops too. We were like trying to close on those dudes and like chase them down. We're like, oh, okay. I know exactly where they are. And you could never chase them down. Mm-hmm. Like never. We had dudes, we went to tracking schools and like we could follow them. We just couldn't close on them, but it was, so the whole experience, Robert, was just, it was crazy. It was awesome. I mean, I look back and I was like, man, that was badass, Yeah. But at the time, it was scary and it was stressful.
It was hell.
I bet, and I know you did, but through that time, right? You made lifelong friends.
Oh yeah.
That will never share another hardships like that with you, and that's why I said, like for me, like I've been a Ranger for 15 years, but there's through the hardship and the family that we became, living in a 1 acre square, was. That's irreplaceable.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's guys like my old RTO, his name's Chuck Seagren. I still in good contact with him. And he's I feel like if I didn't see him for 40 years, he's still my best friend.
That's
like
right.
That's it. Yeah. It's like, that's a bond. And that don't mean we all got to text and have a reunion,
that's right.
Twice a year or anything like that. It's just like, that's it, man.
Yeah,
that's my best friend forever. Yeah.
My buddy, Mike Hero, I haven't talked to him in 4 years. And I was driving Tuscaloosa and he called me out of the blue, so it just picked up right where you leave off, It's just those kind of friends you make.
Well, do you think that a lot of that too, though, is because it was your first combat experience or your first exposure to combat at a very early or young age with a group of similar people, and it puts that impression on you to where, after that you may build friendships and everything else, but it was that initial experience with these guys and what you went through that meant the most.
Yeah, I think so. When it's your first time, that's a different experience than the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth time back,
Right.
It becomes habit. There we go again.
Yeah, I think it is.
That shared hardship, you hear me say that 100 times, that shared hardship and that bond you build between those people you're sharing with is just irreplaceable.
Yeah. I look at that, and that was the experience that had the most effect, like this profound, lifelong effect on me. It was that first tour. And some of it was conditions, some of it was the length of it, and some of it was just the sheer amount of contact and casualties. So yeah, it's it's like anything, like those truly difficult experiences end up having the biggest lasting impact, compared to some of my tours of the Rangers, which were they were intense, right? But they were just it was 4 months out and back. Every mission basically went the way we wanted it to go.
That's right.
And
coming to do God's work. And
and I was never hungry. I was never hungry.
You were in heaven.
My uniform pants were intact.
And if they weren't, somebody would give me a new. I just DX them.
That's right. Yeah. So that one meant the most to me, and those guys that were there with. I think those bonds are probably the deepest with a lot of those guys, where you just there's been a lot of that lifelong contact, and where and again, it doesn't have to be if you're listening, don't feel bad if you hadn't talked to your buddy for 3 or 4 years. That's okay. Mm-hmm. You don't. I don't think you got to have constant contact. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's real special when you.
But it's obvious that what you're saying too, though, that you're feeling that way, that you don't need the contact. The other person's feeling the exact same way, but yet you're constantly thinking, or at least maybe not constantly, but you're thinking about one another in some ways, more than likely, pretty frequently. Because of those bonds and stuff that you created. I mean, you probably think about the guys that you were with, but
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're in every memory. Like they're in every memory, and like those memories are going to be with you forever, right? And then those memories are full of people, right? It's not just the that like really intense experience, of like actually having somebody, like the really ugly firefights and stuff. But there's people all over those memories that.
I would say the reason why you want to stay in contact with them, though, and this microphone keeps dropping. So the reason why you want to stay in contact with them in some ways, though, is those memories over time will somewhat fade. They become more fragmented. They become, the little micro bite, in the grand scheme of things. And sometimes it's good to keep those things fresh. To periodically touch down, for certain.
Back to the platoon sergeant Dempster that I was telling you about on the way on this morning. I was like, reflecting over like how I got where I'm at, and he was the first like really good influence like leader because I was a private right up front and like watching him be steadfast up there in front of those firefights and just be like do this and tell him shit what happened and that was like the beacon of light, So, I let him know that this morning. Like, he laid that foundation. I sent him a little text. I was like, "Hey, boss, I'm just like I'm here and I'm turning over 2 years as a Ranger Company First Sergeant because the foundation that I feel like you laid for me to get me to this point. And I appreciate you for that. So, it's always nice to give that recognition back, just and let people know like the things that they do for you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Veterans Day is a great day to, to go find people maybe you haven't talked to for a while.
Yeah.
That's for me is something I, especially last year I did that a lot with. Again, I don't know, man. I'm just kind of a private person, and I'm not great at keeping in contact with everybody. But Afghanistan had just ended, and I think a lot of people were like going, they were thinking about a lot of things and. Veterans Day was a good chance to kind of reach out to people that maybe it had gone a little cold, and you're like, hey, man, how you doing?
You're probably good now for a couple more years.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But, I mean, for all my Ranger buddies and guys from, that first tour in the Korengal, it's like, man, hey, you know where I am too, man. Come out to Yellowstone, man. I'll show you the secret fishing stashes nobody else gets to see.
And that honey hole.
Yeah, man. I'll show you the good stuff that people are paying thousands of dollars for with a guide. So, but you're right, Robert, that it does fade, right? Like that stuff can go, like you'll lose it, man. You can lose it. Mm-hmm. And like I'm
especially those of us who decide to do Control-Alt-Delete because we only have so much memory anyway. I don't have the 256 gig brain. I only have about the, 256 megabyte brain.
Yeah.
And so I have to constantly.
I'm glad you got that because I sure don't.
Yeah. Some of those memories are like, they are scary and they're traumatic too, right? So you're kind of, again, there's people in them and there's good things and there's bad things and it's all wrapped up, And it's interesting. I mean, that's part of why like one of my motivations with my book was to keep some of that stuff alive, man, and be like,
keep them alive.
Here's the experience, as I remember it, and now it's it's memorialized, and like it's not going to go away now, because just living in my head, trust me, man, if you're fresh off a tour. Even just a few years after, you'd be surprised. You go back 10 years, you'd be surprised what you lose.
Yeah. And I'm always amazed at those guys I run into that can it's like a movie.
Like Colonel.
I mean, exactly. You get these guys that sit down and they'll be like, you remember Private Snuffy and you remember or Sergeant this or whatever. No.
I go, no, my God. I'm a horrible person.
And then when they start telling the story, I kind of remember that. Yeah, I kind of remember that.
You're exactly right.
And that's what I'm talking about. So sometimes those things are kind of fun because, usually they're funny stories or stories that you want to talk about or whatever. So I don't know. Sometimes it's good to catch up and do those types of things. So what happened after your rotation and coming back, getting back into 10th Mountain again? When was it that you ended up trying to get out of there?
Well, it was right when I came back. So when I was overseas, like we were in the Korengal, that 60-month tour, and that's where I applied for, for Ranger Regiment.
What made you decide to do that? I mean, you got a chance to do a little rotation with them or something?
No, I think it was all about that like seed that was planted when I was in college from those two.
Okay.
The old school Ranger captain and the old school Ranger NCO.
And the 16-month deployment.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we never saw like the task force like over there, like, and I was like, man, where are those dudes? Like, what are they doing?
Eating.
with clean uniforms.
Yeah, they're chowing down, man. They're at Bagram at Dairy Queen and
Showering.
Showering.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I remember thinking too, like, so we were fighting. I mean, I'm absolutely sure. Like, I saw the intel and all that, but like, there was an Al Qaeda presence in the valley, and then eventually, they all kind of left when like we really like posted up there, and we're like, we're gonna be in your backyard now, and we ended up just fighting kind of the locals, and I was absolutely sure. I was like, man, you want to kill Al Qaeda or the dudes that truly they're bad. Mm-hmm. You got to get into JSOC. That's where like those missions truly matter. I was saying our missions didn't matter in 10th Motown, right? But they were
Motown,
Crime Glory.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever heard 10th Motown.
No, this guy, and the only reason he says like that because he went to Ranger Regiment. I guarantee it. Because I got the same shit. They'd be like, "Hey, Motown, come here." I'd be like, "This is what we're doing." It literally took me 2 days to take my patch off.
Yeah.
Especially back then. I ain't wrong.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I wanted to be part of, the regiment for a long time. And then like, I had this like image in my head of like what those missions were going to be and the impact that they were going to have. Like all that stuff was going through my head.
Yeah, pure Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was like, man, I'm going to be flash roping on to, Bin Laden's house.
The whole apocalypse and, and the music. Dun, dun,
yeah.
Coming in on some little birds.
Yeah. Yeah. So I came back from that 16-month tour and like went to rope like.
Now you were a first Louis at this point, right?
Yeah, first lieutenant. Yeah, like pretty senior, like first lieutenant, I guess. And I went to rope and then went right to 2nd Ranger Battalion after rope. And
selected that. How did it work on the officer side? I'm just curious. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, first, second, third, or is it?
Oh, for the which battalion?
Yeah.
So I think they asked, and they
asked.
Yeah, they
really?
were like, you got to kind of, you say 1, 2, or 3.
Top percent of the class and pick what you want, and then here's what I got left.
Yeah.
Why is it that the officers get that opportunity in the
slide across the desk to beat the shit out of each other to go to first bat?
Yeah, exactly.
This is ridiculous. I don't know why.
Yeah. And
executives, I guess.
Yeah. But I'm, no joke. I was like, dude, I'd worked as a climbing ranger in Olympic National Park, which is out there by like Seattle, the Olympic Peninsula. So like I thought, second bat, that's cool.
Yeah.
And like, it was like no joke. It was as simple as this. I was like, dude, Georgia is so hot and miserable. Like I can't do it.
That's why they call us Angry Bat. Fat Bat and Beach Boys. So
yeah. So that was I went to second bat for, cause I knew the area and the weather, and that's where I was motivated to go. So I get over there, I come back from a 16-month tour. I mean, I barely it was like somebody freed the concentration camp when we got back.
Totally count your ribs.
Like we were totally, like emaciated. And like, I remember thinking like going down a rope, it was down here. Right. And I was like, man, I don't even know if I can, like, if I'm, like fit for this. Like, I kind of like, we went through where we had this incredible endurance, but then eventually we just got all your muscle broke down and you just got, just wrecked.
You smell ammonia every day.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You're not, so I remember like being scared going to rope of like, dude, I may not make it. So it was more challenging than I think it should have been for me because I was just so fresh off a tour and, in Hindu Kush Range, and I made it through fine. It worked out. But, I get to, and then they're like, all right, cool. You're good. You're going to second bat. And then I showed up over there, and I was like, I flew up to Drome, like got my shit, grabbed my wife. I was like, here, okay, we're going over here now. And I showed up and they were downrange, you know? So they were like, hey, you want to go? I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll go. Because otherwise it was like I was going to help Rear D. I was going to be some like assistant, you know, like to the Rear D
you're
commander.
rowing in the 3 shop.
Yeah.
Get over here, Jay.
Yeah. You're like,
here's your computer and here's your PowerPoint slide. Get back to work.
Yeah.
2 1-sliders by 1.
Death by PowerPoint.
Get on this
man.
draw right now.
Yeah. So that's
you want to figure out a way to piss the second back guy off. Just put a 3 or a 1 in a orange diamond and claim it. My buddy Dennis Gajowski and his wife Tracy, I give him shit all the time, and he'd be like, "That's a fake diamond." I'd be like, "That's not true." He'd be like, "Nah, you're a poser."
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
No, he will get fighting mad because I painted my company a big diamond in my company and put a 3 in it, and he's like, "That's bullshit."
No way.
Yeah, he was not happy with my training room inside my briefing room. I put a big diamond on the wall and put a 3 on it. He was like, "You should paint over that."
Yeah. The two diamond is just cool. It's like kind of that, you know, that
Big
retro,
legacy
like
for them,
throwback.
yeah.
It means
Point
a
de
lot
hoc
to
them, yeah.
Yeah, it's Point de Hoc, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
World War II, like
Yep.
real invasion troops. Like that's cool stuff, man. I dig the 2. I don't really mind if the other battalions use it, but yeah. So I got over there, and then they were downrange, so I went to Iraq. But I mean, it was just like boom, 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 and that's how GWAT was at the time.
That was pretty wild, though. I mean, you're coming straight out of, light infantry, conventional army. Sure, you've been to combat with them and everything, but then you're going with a soft unit with a very different mission set, having just come out of just their basic, selection course.
For an officer, that has to be like drinking from a fire hose.
Oh yeah.
'Cause everybody there is expecting you to lead them.
Yeah,
and
right.
you know what the hell you're doing. You're an experienced lieutenant, right? That's why you're here.
Yeah. Yeah, and we went and that was in Iraq too. And then it was, Iraq was like, it was more of a vehicle game over there. Like we use birds sometimes, but like it was a vehicle game. Like it was usually just way easier to drive to where, an objective or whatever. So, yeah. So again, here I am coming out of like that classic, like old school light infantry fight. And the first time I get in a striker with the Rangers, like the first, like they flew me over there and I got there, I got out and they were like, all right, the mission's going, come to the mission brief. And it was like, they weren't like, oh, here, your appeal, like right now. Right.
Yeah.
They were like, all right, you kind of like tag along with these dudes for a little bit. And, I remember like strikers. I was like, what? It was crazy, man. There was, remote control weapons and, I was like, this is like Star Wars,
Your mind would be blown today.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I bet it would. Yeah, I would, man. So the first time I like got in a striker, I was like, dude, this is crazy. And like having air assets and all that, I remember we were like watching a target and there was like air and I was like, whoa, do you just get to like, there's like a camera basically looking at your target. You like know where everybody is. And like, this is crazy, this is cheating, man. This is cheating. You're supposed to just go wandering through a village in the dark and like,
Right.
and
Wait for
asking
them to
where.
shoot at me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, have you
With
seen
your
a
junk hanging out.
That's the key point. That's why they shoot at you.
So it was like completely different,
Yeah.
and like you're just kind of like, all right, just don't do anything stupid, like that's those first couple missions, like don't do anything.
I tried to tell the new PLs. I was talking to one of my platoon leaders yesterday. It's like, as a first sergeant, when I bring in the new JOs that come in, and they're like, hey, first, they're all hungry. They're hungry, man.
Yeah.
They want to know, and I'm like. They're like, how am I going to, what I need to be keys to success here? And I was like, lean heavily on your NCOs, and they will make you successful. You trust them, believe in them, give them the rope, listen to them, be a sponge for the first 3 or 4 weeks, ask questions, and they'll see that you're into it. I was like, they'll make you successful as long as you allow them to. But if you try to go in and be like, this is my shit, they'll be like, okay, well, let's see. And when everybody goes right and you go left, and the platoon sergeant's on his way to the mission, and you're still standing there wondering why they didn't follow you, and that'd be your own fault.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And that was, you know, even more than the technological differences. Cause you figured that out pretty quick, right? Between like conventional and then special ops or like whatever theater war you're in. It was, I think the NCOs and the strength of the NCOs that was probably the biggest thing, the different from big army, right? To go into the second bat and like going down range with those dudes first was, the NCOs were just like on it, you know, like it was so NCO driven, almost to the point where it's like, you know, the first lieutenants and captains are like, what am I supposed to do here?
Just push buttons on your radio, so everyone will tell you.
Yeah. And
take your antenna farm out of my place.
Yeah. And this is cool, by the way, because I haven't seen a Ranger in the flesh for a while. It's cool, Jason.
I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm an active duty guy, man. That's cool. So I was, you know, and I think a lot of times too, where like the missions went pretty well, like as the officers, like the ground force commanders, platoon leaders, whoever, you know, like a lot of times you didn't really need to do much, you know, and it was a lot of times when the missions started to, you know, go sideways or they became way more complex. That's where I think the officers like earned their pay. You know, and then I'll tell you the other thing that became kind of an interesting theme for me was, you know, just like moral compass too, man, like being a good moral compass for your strike force, you know, and I think at the height of the wars, there was a lot going on and dudes were like, you're in the mix constantly, you know, and it takes, you know, it kind of takes a lot to go out and
pull
like
yourself out of that.
Yeah, exactly. And like you can get man, you're like running around in the dark every night with a rifle,
and
like kicking indoors, man, and shooting people
in the
like
face.
Like just waxing them. And it's easy to get, you know, your moral compass gets a little fuzzy, you know.
Or my trigger finger gets sore. I can't remember which. Sorry, Rob.
So, yeah. You know, I think a lot of the senior NCOs and the officers at the time was, you know, that was part of your job too, man. Was just make sure you know, if you need little course corrections, you know, just kind of be like, you be a good example and be like, hey, man, just. You know,
and that's a good thing that we do the assessments, like, you know, to hire good officers like you know, to come in and that you're being assessed on that too, and like your stress level and how you understand that. So the fact that you are successful in that is because you were chosen by those NCOs that put you through that rope course, you know, and it was like, this is the guy, right? So you should be like, especially like the NCOs back in that time day that did the selections and the senior officers that were doing rope and stuff. If they selected you to do the job, like it was because you were the guy. So
right. Yeah. The psychological screening I thought was a good, you know, part of the Ranger Regiment's edge too. And I think it happens in a lot of the, you know, kind of JSOC community is there's that like psychological element of, you know, you go through, you know, you go interview with a shrink for quite a long time. You're taking tests and it's not Myers-Briggs. It's like the tests. I remember that I'm not going to do the questions because a lot of that stuff is, I think, still pretty sensitive, but like, it was not Myers-Briggs, man. It was not. It was about your capacity for violence and social deviance. And like, there were some pretty interesting questions on there. You're like, man, like, I wish I remembered them. But, and then, you know, the other thing too, that was like, this is my take on this, right? Was that you're looking for a certain type of person, like you're talking about Jason, but like, you're not necessarily looking for a total Boy Scout, right? Like somebody, you know, there's kind of there's Boy Scout, and then there's, you know, kind of over at the other ends, there's serial killers, right? On like if you kind of do a very simplistic like personality perspective, and then, you know, the Rangers, there's got to be some darkness. And a good Ranger, he's got some darkness in him, you know, and you just you can't go too far over, right? Yeah, but like you have to, right? You're finding people who can professionally go into, you know, some very intense situations. Raid houses, kick in doors, like jump onto airfields, like, you know, and like real invasion troops, real raiding troops who can.
We were doing 90. We were going out doing 90 missions of fucking deployment. Yeah, you know, like you'd be like
in 4 months.
in 4 months.
Yeah.
And that might sound like a little or a lot. I don't know, but I'm telling you, when you walk into the
No, that's a lot for conventional. They're not doing that.
When you walk into the ready room, you take your kid off and you turn around and they're like, here's another. You're like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah. Or you're rolling.
Or you're
on target, right?
Clicking ammo back in your thing to the next target. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Or getting like that was, I don't know how long like that went on. Maybe, Jason, but there was some of the tours, like when I, my 3 tours of the Rangers, like that whole follow on target, right? Where it was like, you exploit the intel and like you keep rolling and you might hit like several in like one night. And that was, it was crazy, man. Like what we were doing and, real fast pace. And, I think, also I had a slow tour too with the Rangers and, you kind of wonder like what the tours were like, kind of once the war started to slow down. I think
What year? Yeah.
So I was like 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2009. Those are like I deployed each of those 4 years.
Those are hot years.
Yeah, and they were.
Like a scorpion.
Yeah, and then I think there was I don't know, man. It's kind of like the longer the wars went on, I think the more restraints were put on things, and I think a lot of that was good. The intentions were good, but for guys that caught that first window, it's just all action, and that was pretty cool. You get a lot, get a lot done.
What I could literally talk about this all day, but I want to know because people have asked me like, "Hey, are you going to write a book?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can't remember what I did yesterday," And I want to know like you said to remember, right, and like to help get that on paper and out of your head, which is amazing, like philosophy for it, because I can compartmentalize pretty well, I think. But what were you like? What were your thoughts when you're like, you know what, I want to tell my story. What was said? You know what, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I actually started with a novel. The first thing I wrote was a novel, and it was based on my first tour in the Korengal. And then I just, with a novel's kind of fun because you start with what's real, and then you can like let your imagination kind of run, and you can like explore things that happen to you.
So it wasn't from a diary or something.
I didn't know. I didn't really keep like diary. Like I was too tired and busy, and I didn't. But what I did do, I used to write letters to my wife Elizabeth. Mm-hmm. I'd write letters to her, and she would keep them. And then like one day she like busted them all out. And like we were talking about earlier, like I'd brain dump so much, or like it was buried just way down in the unconscious somewhere, where I was like, I don't know if I can ever find that again. Yeah, like I don't even know it's there anymore. And she whipped out these letters, and the letters had like, you could see sweat stains on the letters and dirt and
took
shit.
You right back.
Yeah. It was like, holy cow, man! Like more than a uniform part or anything else ever did. Where it was just like, here's what I'm really kind of thinking.
I turned my stuff into Riff yesterday because I'm leaving, going over to OCS. And when I was cleaning out all my bags, I've been here 15 years. I'm like throwing shit in and out, getting ready for Op Alert and all that stuff. And they asked me for my, I laughed them out of the building, but they asked me for my Mitch cover. And I was like, what? I'm like thinking, I was like, man, I haven't worn a Mitch forever. And I remember the cover because we used to paint them, going through it in my head. So I'm digging through my shit to find it. I found it on my helmet. But to the letters thing, I was my helmet was sitting in the bottom of a tote, and I had put like a stack of letters, probably a good 40 of them probably. And I'd set the helmet down on top of them. And when I picked up the helmet, there's a bunch of those letters there from like literally my very first deployment, from my ex-wife and my kids writing and stuff, like all that. Like I was like a crying little schoolgirl, lost her first love, sitting there reading through all the letters, And then I've taken the helmet cover off, and it's like literally like pulling back a piece of history for me, Yeah. Because when I pulled it off, like we used to spray paint our helmets, and we used to put Velcro on them for our call signs and stuff. And when I was pulling off that helmet cover and like seeing that helmet being painted and like the black Velcro strips on it. So give me chill bones talking about black, all that was like pulling back a piece of history, and I was like, man, like it was like
You didn't realize how symbolic this whole thing was going to be.
I had no idea, I was like, I got to find this damn Mitch cover, but 3 hours later, and it took me 10 minutes to find it because of that, which was awesome. So I know,
the letters
relate to that.
and it's there's that whole. It's this physical object that's not, that doesn't exist in an email. And I sent emails too, but like, especially that first tour in the Korengal, we didn't have email. We didn't have no computers, man.
No.
We're like on FM radio and, old school, right? So it was those letters. And then, the other thing was like interesting kind of reading them all together. So you're like, it wasn't a diary, but in effect, it was sort of acted that way, right?
Yeah.
Because, I'm like, oh, diaries are for girls. But like, it sort of was in that. The other thing I saw when you kind of read them all like a long time later, all kind of together, you could see your own, like a lot of emotional arc going on, right? Where you're like, here's this guy. This was about, early on it was adventure and, and then
just ready to get after it.
Yeah. And it was, all hungry. Right. And then, you see somebody too who went through, who was seeing casualties, I got wounded, I got hit, and, we had a lot of KIAs too. And, you see that showing up and you see the realism of it all.
Dude, even just looking at the dates or whatever would probably take you back.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're like,
Date of the letter.
Yeah.
Oh
absolutely.
my God. I remember.
You're like winter, man. Like winter in the mountains in Afghanistan. You're like, God, I remember that, man. Being just so cold. Just looking for shelter, like those base needs, man. Yeah. That's where you're at. You're down in your like reptile brain, and that's and then toward the end too, you saw somebody who had like I think some wisdom too, but there's some dark letters too, man, where I was like, shit, I wish I wouldn't have sent that home.
I had a couple of those too.
Yeah.
Like one of those I might not make it back kind of letters.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I remember going home, like we were doing this on the long tours, you didn't deal with it in the Rangers, but we did mid-tour leave, and mid-tour leave for me was like something I talked a lot about in the book. Both the novel and the nonfiction, because it was, man, it's just really intense, like emotional experience where you're like, you get this little, you would get to eject for just a little bit and you're like home, man, but you're like, dude, like your mind, like the human mind is not set up for like that kind of thing where you're like so immersed in a war and then boom, 24 hours, you're home.
Yeah. Have to turn it off.
Everything. Yeah. You're supposed to turn off. Everything's supposed to be normal. You're supposed to, no, man, you're still on patrol. Like, I was, like mid-tour leave was weird. And then you get thrown like right back into it. And I think psychologically a lot of dudes like coming back was probably the worst part. Was like re-entry was just such a, like, it was too hard mentally on a lot of guys. And we would see dudes come back, and especially like if they came back and it was like right into like ugly ops, or it was like, they land that day and then there's like some giant firefight and dudes would just totally, like I think mentally some switch would get turned off and like those dudes would like shut down as soldiers.
I think the guys who did the best with the mid-tour leave, because I went on my 15-month deployment. I took my mid-tour leave at month 12.
Oh yeah.
So when I came back, I was like, I'm short and final now, man. We're going to rip and I'm out of here. But I think the guys who took it right up front, the first 30 days or so,
yeah,
and then the guys who took it at the very end, you really didn't see much issues with them when they came back or whatever. But the guys who were like dead center, and when you come back, you're like, I got an entire year left.
I mean, I could totally see that too, and like what you're describing there, where it doesn't probably take much, like you're describing, to where your brain you'd go into that stage where things are happening around you, but you're not present.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that could like get people killed.
Yeah.
Well, people think that they go through those things and we deal with the shit that we've done, seen, and all those things, but you're too alpha, if you will, to talk about it. I was for years, like I just put that back in this little box and I'm going to go do this job. But, so you're like, man, I fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But realistically, you are, but you're not kind of.
Yeah.
You're too like prideful at the moment, because that's, you're a war fighter, dude. Like you're modern day Spartan, like why would I tell anybody that I'm fucked up in the head when I can't go back and do that again? So that's where you get. And I think that throwing them in and bringing them out I would have been like, man, I'll just stay here.
Yeah.
If you'd have gave me the option, I'd have just rode it out.
You think about the guys who went through like World War II and stuff like that. They just spent 3-4 years. Yeah. They didn't come home. No. They were just gone. Families in a lot of cases they didn't get the letter, didn't know whether they were living or not.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I mean, those World War II, different ball game in that. Those guys were deployed for 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. They weren't at the front the whole time. Whereas I think a lot of, Afghanistan in particular, there were posts in Afghanistan where you were exposed always, particularly in the mountains.
Yeah.
And whereas I think, World War II is, again, not the one's better than the other, but it was like, you might be deployed for 3 years, but some of that's going to be you were hanging out in Britain, going to the bar or whatever. And then, you were in part of like liberated France or something. And you weren't always at the front. And I think the GWAT, we kind of struggle with, having people exposed for really, really long periods of time.
I could see pros and cons to both sides, right? Where somebody probably along through there said, oh man, we got to give our troops a break. They've been out here and we got to send them home and, that type of thing. Yet it probably would have been better had they put them just in an isolated or a different situation for a little while. Not let them go all the way back home yet, but allow them to kind of, hang out at the pool, chill for a little while, do whatever.
They did that in Iraq with the R&R.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about. And then they throw them back in, and then it's not as much of a, like you're talking about.
Culture shock.
Yeah.
Because you're going back there and your family's getting a chance to see you just coming back from a deployment in that dark state. And, you're trying to still keep your head in the fight knowing you're going back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like you don't want to turn all that off.
No,
right?
because you got to go back and do it again.
Yeah. And I think your family, they see it, right? Where like when you're over there, it's kind of like, maybe it's like, gaining weight or something. Like you're looking in the mirror every day and you don't see it, right? But it's your wife or your son or your daughter who hadn't seen you for 8 months. Like they see that. But I like there's those kind of like purgatories, which is like, okay, we pull them out, and the units were doing this on the back end. I think the Army kind of figured out that it's not good to just pull them out and then be like, okay, we're gonna just set you free on America. So they make you sit in like, Uzbekistan or something for like 5 days.
Yeah, it was miserable.
Yeah, and that was like worse. But it's
send me back.
It's I think too, where you're like, if you would have gone in and being like, hey guys, here's the deal. All the officers have gotten together and decided we're taking away mentor leave because it's really not in your best interest. Like that wouldn't go over.
No, that wouldn't
mutiny.
So I don't know what the right answer is, man. But I just it's part of like it's one of those issues of like modern war is like we can put people back and forth so fast.
Yeah.
That it's like the mental transitions are just completely.
Well,
insane.
I think we did not do a good job of anything mental involved in the war over 20 years. It was taboo for the entire time until like, the last couple of years where, guys started being like, hey, getting a lot of suicides and stuff. And unfortunately I have multiple friends, but, and people started being like, hey, it's all right to get help. I think if we would have had some kind of, DX in place, if you will, like when you come off the bird, and you go see a psych or you have to like maybe get like at least some conversation with somebody outside of your chain of command and be like, hey, give them the 5 W's of, hey, you're allowed to do these and you're going to keep your job. You've been at war, right? That's not something normal humans do all the time. So you will keep your job if you feel like you need to talk to somebody about it.
Yeah.
We did not do a good job at that.
Yeah, I think in the special ops world too, it's so I saw 2 senior NCOs that I think very highly of that I know were really struggling, and I won't say names or anything, but I think the regiment extremely competitive, for everything, right? Where it's like, you go in and go, man, I need to I'm hurting,
Yeah.
then maybe you're trying to make platoons or, first sergeant or whatever. And it's just like, hey, then that's a knock against you, like that's the kind of, I think when they're in ultra competitive environments, people don't want to do anything to, hurt themselves,
Right. Then it was definitely, like I'm going to be the next platoon sergeant. So if I go over here, I'm going to pump the brakes. But I think the regiment is definitely trending with the failings program and stuff, moving in a different direction. Where if you are assessed that you need some help, and that doesn't mean you're not going to get the next job. Just we might go ahead and put somebody else in there for now, to take that one. But there'll be another one open that we want you to be leader for us, but we want you to get better and get help now first.
Yeah.
So they're not like, oh, you got problems? Go out there and solve them. So I think there is evolving and leading in the right direction with the new changes of command coming through and doing a better job about enforcing that getting help process.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good.
Well, it's going to take those NCOs and those officers who've been through that process and stuff really speaking up too, like what you've done or others have done to help with that. Mm-hmm. Because over time, the further we get away from combat, we're going to be repeating this, right?
That's right.
Because all the old timers are going to be out of there, and you're going to have guys who didn't serve in combat, don't know what we're talking about. What mindset are we going to have? Are we going to keep the mindset that it's okay, you can be a warrior and you can come home and feel broke, and it's okay, we're going to work with you? Or, what's going to be the mindset? So I think that what culture you guys hopefully are creating there, hopefully it lives on, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's not something that's just, because it's important right now. No, it's important all the damn time.
That's right.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had to stay. Unfortunately, unlike enlisted guys, you've got to leave.
Oh man, I know. Yeah, yeah, and it's an interesting part of like the officer, track trying to get into the regiment. I think it's actually a really good thing. And
but you already did your conventional time.
I know, right?
And so it's like,
So here's the deal. So like I've been on both sides, right? You have 1 foot in special ops, or 1 foot in the conventional army. I think it's a good thing. I think having people who can, on the officer side, right? Like ultimately, like I think you're supposed to be, groomed for thinking strategically, for understanding like every single part of the organization, the bigger army, and like what all the capabilities are and what the challenges are. And so, I think that it's a strength for the regiment that the officers have to go back and forth. One, because they're obviously they're having to prove that they can operate at that level before they can come into the regiment and do the same thing, right? So there's no unproven officers. Doesn't mean they're all awesome,
right?
They're not all complete stars, but you have to show you can be a successful platoon leader before you can come and be a platoon leader in the Rangers. Same with company command, all that, right? But that forces you then to have to prove yourself back out in the conventional army, but it means you're never divorced from it. And I think that's good. If you've ever cleaned up a JSOC raid in Afghanistan as the battle space owner the next day, I think it's good that you never get completely divorced from, what the conventional army's doing. And I think a lot of times the JSOC world, they may have satisfied like a narrow counterterrorism objective, but, in charge of the larger strategic effort, nation building, stabilization, whatever, as flawed as some of those like bigger goals were, I think a lot of times, JSOC actually, a mission could set back the larger objectives as opposed to advance them. And you see that when you're a conventional guy, where you're like, man, we had this going pretty good. And I think JSOC hit a legit target last night. It also, I think strained maybe.
Well, yeah, you're going to have ripple effects that come out of it.
Right. So, it's interesting to have been on both sides, to be the guy that led the task force that made the big, big splash, but then also be the one that like the next day, had to kind of clean it up. And then a lot of those retaliation casualties, because there's always like this, there's always retaliation. Like those go to the battle space owner, right? Mm-hmm. They don't know where the Ranger task force went. Mm-hmm. Those dudes came in the night, they disappeared in the night. They're back at Bagram eating Dairy Queen. And then, the battle space out, they're out there that platoon's out there in their little patrol base, man. And that's where kind of the attention's going to go, within the next, the next week or whatever. So, I've been on both sides, and I think, it's important for the officers to, I think not like get too narrow, right, in their perspective about, kind of what all the different pieces on the battlefield are doing and what their role is, So, but
what happened when you got that call from Branch though?
From what?
From Branch, and it was time to go.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, dude. So this is where I had mixed feelings about this. So I was like, I can't go back to the big army.
he just said all of that.
I know. It was like, it's important that you have perspective, but not me. Fuck no. So I got out, and it's a weird, it's an interesting relationship too for so officers, you're not supposed to go to the regiment necessarily and then get out.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of
taboo.
frowned about.
It's
frowned upon, man. And, it would take a long time to kind of talk through all that, but it's kind of something I talk about in my book is with just the whole experience at the time. And I think part of what was going on for me, man, is I got in the fight as quick as I could, and I stayed in the fight. I never, I didn't have any breaks, right? And particularly that first long tour in the Korengal, I think retention rates from everybody who was part of that were incredibly low because it was just it was like one of those things, man, where it's just it was a little too much, but I don't know. Something can be said for pacing yourself, right? Like we were talking about the mental health issue. Like I think a lot of times if you kind of give guys a place to go, maybe take a knee, go do some instructor time, things like that. It's in the long run, you're going to get more out of them. Then it's just like boom, 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 go until you're, until the wheels come off, right? So, I think it's good to pace yourself. But yeah, part of me was like having, it's like you play. It's like going to the, you get picked up to play on an NFL team and you end up in the Super Bowl, and then you're like, it's like they're gonna bust you back down to high school ball or something.
Can you leave there? Man. And are you allowed? Because I don't know the answer to this question. Are you allowed to go, say, from regiment into selection for SF, or take the long walk and go JSOC and special mission unit or anything? Are you allowed to, or are they still requiring you to leave special ops? You've got to go back to conventional, and then you can apply for those things.
Depends on what rank you are. For the officer world, where you're at in your timeline.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, say you're a captain, at this time frame.
BQ time frame, BQ captain.
Yeah.
Like branch qualified captain. Mm-hmm. He can go to both selections.
Okay.
Lieutenant, non-branch qualified, he has to go out to the Army and go to BQ, go to MCCC, do a company command, and then.
Okay.
Or he can go to just one selection.
So you can make the crossover.
Yeah.
So you could.
Yeah, there's ways. Yeah, there's ways for sure.
Who wants to go from being a ranger to being a long tab? I'm sorry. I got great. Some of my best friends. Connor.
Well, what about an SMU then? Yeah. Over at JSOC.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But I was never picked last for softball. So
yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I saw this with like the Green Berets and the dudes.
You're gonna get such. I'm sorry. You're gonna get such bad rap over this.
I love you guys. I'm big fan of you guys. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Okay,
go
ahead.
I was like, well, from the Green Beret route, I was like, man, if I want to hit targets, I want to hit targets with like 50 Rangers.
America.
Yeah.
America.
I don't want to hit targets with like my one other like SF buddy and like 50 Afghans.
Yeah,
no
exactly.
way, man. That's crazy. Good. Like those dudes, like, man, my hats off.
Like, that's right.
Dude, like all the respect, man. Because that's like, they're really, you talking about hanging it out there, man.
Yeah.
Jesus.
All on the table.
Yeah. And there was a whole wave of, blue on blue kind of stuff going on too. Like that was all happening when I was serving.
Yeah, but it's a totally different mission set, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you can still go and join some boys and hit HVTs with the special mission unit.
Yeah. Well, the unit too, you see this, where you're like, okay, in the regiment, you're like, these NCOs are like, you're like, dude, I could, like I said, like most of the time, like if the officer wasn't even there, it'd probably be okay.
Yeah.
And you're like, when I'm working with the unit too, like downrange, you're like, again, you're like, I don't know, man. It was less clear to me, what say an 04 and 05, 06 is doing in the unit. Yeah. Than like what, the traditional platoon leaders, company commanders, that kind of thing. So, I definitely weighed all that, man. But, I kind of, I felt like, it definitely got.
How was your wife and family feeling at this point? Because you'd been running and gunning pretty hard. I mean, you went, on rotations and stuff with 10th Mountain, went over into a regiment, spent 4 years there, hitting it pretty hard, and all of a sudden you're going to go, hey, I'm checking out. I mean, did your wife ever go, you sure you wanting to do this?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I did all this with a young wife. And, I could see where she was kind of like, dude, for real? Like, this is what this is? This is what this life is? So, I think she was starting to kind of question a little bit. Mm-hmm. We love that experience, like it was not, I don't think it was coming from necessarily a negative place, but it was just like, are we supposed to do this for 20 years?
Hats off to the ones that stick around.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting to, Jason, is, man, like the dudes. So, I did 4 tours, like two cumulative years overseas, like real, like hot tours. And some guys, like I remember my Ranger platoon sergeant, dude was on like 12, he was on tour 12 with me. And I was like, what? And he had 2 kids, and like, I mean, it's just incredible. Like the endurance.
14.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, man. The endurance, dude, that's where, so this is a theme from We March at Midnight is, my book is, I think it's easy to go to war the first time. It's to keep going back like over and over again, to have like, build like your entire adult life around serving and like being constantly exposed in harm's way. It's a whole different ball game. For guys like me that got hit, that's also like, it takes it to a whole nother level where you're like, this shit is real. Mm-hmm. People are dying. You can get killed because we all think it's not going to be us, right? Otherwise, most people I don't think would ever even do what we're doing, right? And so, yeah, it all, it's incredible to, I'm lucky that I got real tours, and some guys, who caught a lot of this stuff at the back end or, or in maybe, between wars, never got that experience. I'm incredibly lucky. Also, I think after 4 tours, I felt pretty good about like having kind of, paid my dues, and
which is very honorable. Super. You crushed it, dude.
Yeah.
Like you should be proud and feel good about it.
Yeah.
I know the places you've been. I've been there my damn self, and I'm telling you right now, if you're listening, like it's hell.
Yeah. Yeah. So the guys that did, and especially, on the conventional side, you got some guys that might have done like 3 or 4 of the long ones.
Oh yeah. I know several guys like that.
Yeah. And you're just like, they got kids, they got, family, and it's like, holy cow, man. That's real patriotism. I think that's real like endurance and like personal fortitude. That's where you see it. You don't see it on like, it's one thing to be brave in a firefight, but to keep, you're on firefight like 700, and you're still like leading from the front. That's, that to me, that's Medal of Honor shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
no, I do know.
Yeah.
And like Jason and some other guys I know that spent 12, 15 years in regiment. And during the, combat period, we're talking, not like, the pre 9/11 time period or anything, which is very different. And most of them didn't spend that long. It was average about, enlisted guys, young guys would stay about 12, 18 months and then they get the hell out of there. And then, have you seen guys that stuck into, regiment or one of the battalions for 6 years or something like that? It was like, holy cow. And then now you see guys that I know the 12, 15 years and what they've lived through in combat. It's remarkable.
Yeah.
I mean, and the fact that you're here is remarkable. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to be in a regiment for 15 years, 12, 15 years, which I think is commendable in itself. But what you guys done, and then to still be here, the good Lord has something for you.
I give it all back
bigger.
to God. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
100%. And my men that got me through what I've been through, my dumb ass didn't do it. I blacked out and woke up. But it's the men beside you, left and right, that you literally would give your own life for, and they would do the same. And there's nowhere else that I've ever been, and that gives you that feeling of honor, brotherhood, servantship, like all of those things rolled up into one thing. And that's everybody here to do your job, and you just feel. I built my whole life around it, and is because I never had that feeling anywhere else as much, and it was like a craving almost. It became.
Well, how was it for you? And I'm maybe I can ask you the same because you're headed in that same spot. How is it in terms of being almost in a euphoric high of the rock star on stage, and then you step off the stage and you go to God's country?
Yeah, there's
that's a lot of noise.
Yeah, there's
to
a
silence.
whole like withdrawal and hangover phase for sure.
Sure,
I
can believe that.
Yeah, and I think that's a vulnerable time for people too. Is like that first 6 months. That first 6 months out where you kind of lost. Yeah, you've lost like this sense of purpose, and you've lost that immediate
pay
connection.
attention.
I am.
You've lost that immediate connection to a lot of the other people. That first 6 months is. That's a critical period, right? It's just like that golden hour for a casualty, right? I think that matters. That matters a whole lot. And I definitely went through that too, where, I was in deep, right? And I think the deeper you're in, the harder that exit is too, right? Where you're like real combat time, and you've been in it for a while, especially. That also makes it challenging, right? Maybe if you were some technician in the Navy. Again, you weren't in, I would say, the way I think about this, you weren't in super deep. So like that
transition.
That transition is just not as messy.
Yeah.
Right. But I was still like, I was in job interviews, saying crazy shit,
Well, so how
saying crazy
soon
stuff.
from the time that you came back before it was like, I'm done? I mean, what was that time frame?
I think it started this flip. Like I was actually still there, and I was kind of like, I think this is it for me.
But what was the time frame though before you dropped papers or whatever?
Yeah, I think it was in like a few months.
Okay, so it was really you were still in a very hot period. I mean, from and then making this transition at the same time frame.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Heavy. Yeah. It was. Yeah, it was.
Trying to find where am I going to move the family? What kind of job am I going to get? Of course, you probably thought you had that figured out.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't. And I mean,
did you have any money set aside to get ready?
Yeah. I mean, something that attracted me actually to this podcast and this show, Robert, was part your story with like just it not necessarily going well or struggling like through that transition. I think it's a very common story, but I didn't know what I was trying to do. And here's what I also thought, but I was like, I was in the regiment. I got combat time. I got Purple Heart. I got Medal of Valor, Bronze Stars, all that shit. Fucking everybody's going to be like just throwing themselves at me,
Yeah.
Everybody owes me something.
Yep. Put it at the top of the resume.
Yeah. And people, that was not the response I got, and I thought too, with like, there was a lot going on at the time where there was still a lot of attention on it. And, so that's not the experience I had, right? Like you had to, you had to sell yourself and find ways to, I think, I don't want to sound too generic here, but what I did find was that, that was met with a certain amount of like, people were a little bit like scared of that. You know what I mean? They're like, they kind of perceive you as a very intense person.
Yeah.
Who's been through some really intense experiences.
Who could pop at any moment.
And and they're like, hey, like, I don't want this guy going crazy or like screaming at people in the office or whatever.
Yep.
Like,
right.
You've actually killed people. I'm like, why? What's wrong with that?
That's that first question
for your
I
country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. I did it for you. I did it for you.
You don't have it.
Yeah.
So many times people would be like, you can just talk about it like that. I was like, yeah, I've killed a lot of people. Like, yeah, I'm proud of, I didn't do anything bad, and I did everything for the greater good of our country. So that's why I don't mind talking about it. So yeah, but I still need a job.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't need to be the cashier, but
and then that's when they tell you, but we don't have a job for that out here.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep your resume.
Yeah.
Thank God I met Dave.
Yeah.
No, but seriously,
So,
it's a real struggle. And for you, it had to be, with the family, it's a little bit different. If you have a single guy, I believe that we do all of his job building a guy up to get him to be a war fighter. All of a sudden, he's a war fighter and he's coming out of transition. We do a absolutely terrible job of transitioning back into the military or the civilian force. And people will say, but that's not the military's job. I get it. But if there's a way in which we can kind of help with that transition somewhat outside of just the TAP program, transition assistance program or whatever. Yeah. But I'm talking about really emotionally and all of that. Like, some of these single guys, there were programs that are out there where they go to a ranch or whatever, and they just kind of decompress.
Yeah.
I think it was years ago had...
That's
Griff
my dream
from
one day to have something like that for dudes.
I know Griff from and keep them in service while they do this, right? Griff from Combat Flip Flops, talked about you need to have at least 12 months cash runway so that you can walk out the door and take the damn time to decompress before you go back into the workforce. Yeah. Having a family, it's a little bit harder to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
You feel like you got to provide right now.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, right, exactly. And my brother and I both kind of navigated that. He did it with kids, right? And so I think he felt like he didn't have as much time to.
So you didn't have kids at this time?
No, I had wife, no kids yet. But it was like there's no like, well, I'll go screw around and try this out. Maybe I'll try that out. And like, if I have to eat ramen a little bit here and there, it's not that big of a deal, right? I think there's two things for like, guys getting out or, men and women getting out that, one is if you had any other experiences outside the military that you liked, then that's a big plus, right? Where you kind of have a sense of like, here's this other thing maybe that I want to try. Mm-hmm. Right.
Or if you were working before you came on active duty.
Exactly. Right. You've had there's other kind of professional adult experiences that you can kind of like give you a sense of like, maybe I want to do that or I want to do something like that. That's those guys, those men and women, that's a huge advantage. Yeah. And then the other I think is education.
But
right?
if you're combat arms.
Yeah, exactly.
However,
he could be a great gate guard. That's I figured I was going to be like the senior gate guard.
Security, police officer, stuff like that is typically what they end up throwing at you anyway.
They got a great program in the Army where you do the 6 months internship for companies.
They just started that.
Yeah.
Which I knew a dude, he was actually on the podcast that talked about that program, and he actually went to work for a brewery.
Yeah.
And, got to brew beer and everything and chill and such. But not everybody knows about those programs. Nope. Not everybody gets introduced to those.
Yeah.
Well,
but that's a great program where you can kind of mix the divide too. I'm sorry, get back to what you were saying.
No, that's good. I didn't. Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting because I've been out long enough where I kind of, like some of this stuff's new to me. That's cool. Just like, education's the other side of like, so guys, some, I keep saying guys, but
we know what you mean.
Yeah. Some people get out, right. And like, they want to kind of stay, near the military.
Yeah.
Some people get out and they do a 180.
Yeah.
There's like,
I went to run as far as I could.
Exactly. I want to do something. Me too. Like I was like, I did that.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to just kind of hover around it. Like I want to do something just totally different.
Yeah.
And so education's a really good like path where if like you're going to hit the reset button like super hard, education, right?
Yeah.
And for me, the post 9/11 like GI Bill, that's an awesome tool. That vehicle is outstanding in terms of just having a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of things you can do with it. I went and did like a master's with it because I felt like what I had done in the military, like I kind of dead ended myself on a few things where like, I wanted to do something different. I didn't have like a way to get there. I didn't have a bridge.
Yeah.
And to me, like education is kind of the bridge. If you want to hit reset or if you want to like, man, I'm over here. I'm gonna go way over there.
I never really thought about it that way, to really do the reset. I wondered if you get back into it and you may get more frustrated because of maybe you're older. You're walking into older if you're working on undergrad, not master's program, because master's you may, but still, I mean, some kids go right out of undergrad right into a master's program. But you're more than likely older, more senior, certainly have lived probably 3 lifetimes in 18 months, 3 years, whatever it has been, right? And you're walking in the door with a group of individuals that have a very different mindset. So I would think that could be more challenging than let me work my noodle and make it, stress myself out in a different way and stuff through school. But
yeah. Well, yeah.
But you found it cathartic?
Yeah. Just a few things I think one is most colleges, whatever, I think guys are, some people are maybe afraid of education, right? It's just hey, I'm not smart enough or something like that. Or I'm not a school person. I'm not But I think most colleges as a veteran, they want you.
Oh, they do, and they have programs out there now.
Yeah. And that was always you were, in terms of being competitive. I mean, you could do just shoot for the moon. Yeah. And most schools are hell yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's even in our university system. Veterans are highly regarded.
Yeah.
And then. But then, being in school, I felt I didn't fit in very well.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
I just didn't, man. I was I couldn't, I made some friends and stuff, but there was a void there. There was a chasm.
So you took that out of the equation, but what you're saying is by, for somebody who's transitioning, especially has been, in combat and everything else, education is a way to immerse yourself and use your brain in a very different way, but it's not necessarily for the relationship part of it. It's not for the, that part, but what you're saying is, because that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. I wasn't very good at networking.
Right. I can imagine.
Yeah. But I'm a social person. I think I'm not, a total recluse or anything, but it was really about, kind of the academic side of it and the skills and the,
where'd you get your master's in then?
So the environmental field and,
I knew that for some reason.
Yeah. I'm kind of a secret tree hugger. Well, it's not secret. I'm very, so, I was, like I said, I had that experience before the military as a climbing ranger in Olympic National Park, climbing and doing mountaineering, and getting paid for it, where I just had this connection to the parks, right? And so it wasn't an accident. I ended up back in the National Park Service.
Yeah.
Except more on the professional side. I was after Afghanistan, like I said, man, I was man, I ain't sleeping on the side of the mountain anymore.
Right.
That's not, no. Maybe I'll do that a little bit here and there for fun, but I don't want to.
And you've talked about how your job and your career is something, and I can totally see that now, is something that's really great for transitioning military as well. And it's kind of an unkept secret.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah. And that's where, I think especially for former infantry, the national parks, there's some awesome jobs where it's
no one would ever think that.
I know, right? And that's where it's there's a whole kind of law enforcement component, and it's part, it's basically you're a park ranger, right?
Yeah.
You're a park rangers, commissioned law enforcement.
Oh, you get to go from being a ranger to a park ranger.
Yeah, exactly. But they're cool jobs. They're cool jobs. You're gonna do search. You're gonna do search and rescue. You're gonna work with your hands all the time. You're gonna be out in the elements and outdoors and.
They tab you.
you get the.
You're no, guys, I'm an army.
You get you get the ram head.
I don't need that aircraft training.
Did you sew it on your uniform?
Absolutely.
But there's I'm why aren't there more infantry dudes and out here, man? I don't.
Well, this is where we get the word out for things like that.
Absolutely.
And this is great that you're putting that stuff out there.
Yeah.
Well, so did you have what kind of training did you have to go through?
There was, it's kind of park specific. So Yellowstone's pretty unique in that it's, fairly remote, very, isolated, right? And so cold, there's kind of more of a cold weather thing. And, so we all operate snowmobiles and, trained to operate snowmobiles and kind of snow survival and how to ski. And, that's the kind of skills you need, I think, to operate in that park, to do field work, things like that. Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of our workforce, they're out there, on skis or, they're hanging off the side of a helicopter, darting a wolf for research. Right.
This is spot on. You're right. This is perfect for, you got little birds?
So there's some cool stuff going on, and that's at least one thing I was hoping to do today was just kind of say, hey man, if you're in the infantry and you're looking to get out, think about the National Park Service, because there's some pretty cool jobs that are like got the type of people that went to the infantry, right, intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
There's some good matches in the parks, right, where you're like you're an outdoorsman. You're an outdoorsman, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where I think again, a lot of the volunteer infantry, you get a lot of people who are who are outdoorsmen, who grew up outside, who are competent with weapons, that kind of thing, right? Like I think a lot of your Rangers, conventional guys that's common, right? And so same thing with the parks, where I think you get a lot of people who have to be good with good with their hands, good outside, like competent in the woods and the mountains.
Well, doing those things like with the parks, and that's a great platform. We use this to get that out, but at the same time, like the opportunities are out there. Apparently not getting put out, but the 6-month internship is like you
haven't heard about this then?
No.
It's worth talking about again, because again, the more we air this on this type of show, it's a great program.
It is. It's absolutely amazing, and you do the research on a big company or whatever that you want to work for.
Doesn't even have to be a big company.
No, it doesn't have smaller company. I'll probably end up doing it too, but I know I'm going to. But at the end of the day, like, you find the company, the organization, or whatever you want to work for, and basically you go and you can tell them, like, hey, look, I can work for you for 6 months, and you don't have to pay me.
Yeah.
And it's
you're still on active duty.
Yeah. Wow.
They just have to sign.
They have there's like 4 forms that you have to fill out, get signed by the tank commander, because you got to authorize that stuff. But
it's got to be a real job. They can't be, in other words, they can't pay you. They have to understand that, and
there's a lot of legality to it. But it's super easy to get done, and you can, any company commander knows about it at this point.
Yeah.
I've even seen guys that wanted to get into the sports field, right? Like all the athletics and coaching and stuff. Dude did a 6 month, and then he had some permissive TUI stuff on the end. So he ended up doing like 8 or 9 months for the Atlanta Falcons, just following the team around the coach, like being a scribe. And at the end of this time, they decided to bring him on higher, and they got like so many days, like 90 days to tell you, like, hey, we're probably not going to hire you. And I'd give you an opportunity to go find another one for another couple months. So it's amazing.
And you think about private sector companies, so often they have internship programs, or they have programs where they're searching for consulting contract type of people who are willing to do that, so that it can be a trial run.
Yeah.
Do I want to hire a Ray? Well, let me put him in this type of role. I can terminate the contract at any given time if they don't work out. But if he works out, I'd love to transition him over. So it's a great type of program for that. If there was a way to find a bridge between, reaching out to the commands out there to say, hey, listen, here's something most people don't think about. But if they go and do a 6-month rotation and something like that, man, you might find you just found your dream job,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you kind of like let any opportunity for people to acquire skills, like try things out, and where again, there's not the pressure of like I have to make a decision and start earning income right now.
On either side,
right? Yeah, like that's an incredibly stressful situation. I liken my whole like military experience and then getting out to kind of like getting on a rocket, and then being like shot into outer space, right? And so like all the combat time was like in the rocket and being launched, and like just all the thrust, and your cheeks are jiggling, and it's crazy, and everything's moving super fast. And then eventually you break through, and then and then you're in outer space, and that was getting out, where you're just like, there's no gravity, it's just like where am I? That's how it felt for me.
I never thought of it that way.
Anything that like can take away that sense of now I'm in outer space and there's no gravity.
You that tether.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of tether to hold you close to the spaceship a little bit.
Absolutely. So, I said that, if you've had a experience before you got out, I think it, like some other professional experience or before you got into the military, that can help you. Education's an awesome bridge too, to kind of, help you through that. And then, I think the other thing is like, obviously other people, right? Like if it's in your family or it's your buddy or something like that, those are the other things where it's like, hey, I saw the path that guy took and he's my friend and he can kind of help me with some advice, right? So it's obviously other people in your life that can, talk to them. And, I remember I didn't necessarily, like a lot of my friends, like close friends and stuff we were all kind of going through, they were all kind of in the same boat as me, where they were they were transitioning out and they had been in this incredibly intense, like wartime military and so we were all kind of lost together, and then there wasn't a lot of people, but just because of the, what the year and stuff, there wasn't a lot of people that I think had kind of, made it through and they're like, we're in similar situations and we're successfully on the other side. Who had like made it across that like raging river, and we're like, hey, here,
there's life over here.
There's a ford right here,
and here's a lifeline.
Exactly. There wasn't a whole lot of those people out there at the time, but I think now, there's obviously a lot more.
Well, if they make themselves known, I mean, I think this generation is probably doing a little bit better job of that, but like, and it's primarily because of how America embraced or, understood, because it impacted so many different people around them, the war and what's going on. It wasn't in the news all the time, but that probably made it even that much more forefront because they knew it's still there and they didn't care whether the media was sharing it because it affected them probably in some ways. They had a nephew, an uncle, a brother, or a sister, or, aunt or whatever, a cousin that's in it. And you go back to like Vietnam, they didn't do that. When they came back, it's hard to find Vietnam vets. We were talking about it, and luckily I've been able to find a few that's going to come and join us on the podcast and everything. But it wasn't like they wore it like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And so I think it's much easier to bump into somebody and have a conversation and learn that they're a veteran, and then that kicks it off and everything. But prior to that, you didn't find very many Vietnam veterans that were out there that could be a mentor, a coach, someone that can help you and say, hey, it's okay out here. You're going to be all right, because they kept it themselves.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's what I mean.
I'm talking about how to some extent, people were a little bit wary of you as a combat veteran, but on the whole, right, I think we're all infinitely, in a better position in terms of the relationship of veterans to society today than like Vietnam, it's like, man, that was
100%.
Yeah. So like on the whole, like America's good to veterans, it's just, you gotta, you gotta hustle, like people really aren't gonna hand you anything. Like,
the grind doesn't stop. It just goes in a different, energy direction,
I want to, before we wrap up, I want to make sure that you say your book name again and how people can find it.
Yeah.
And then how they can get in contact with you if they want to learn more about what you just dropped as far as becoming a park ranger.
Oh yeah, sure. So, We March at Midnight is the book, nonfiction or memoir. We March at Midnight.
Amazon, all the
major, it's so traditional publishing, right? And they're huge distribution for all that. So all the, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Powell's, all the Audible, every major retailer has it. And then, Ray McPadden 1 on Instagram. Ray McPadden 1 on Instagram. Not too big on social media.
Well, you weren't.
I weren't, but
before now.
I have an interesting relationship with social media. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. I'm a slow adopter. You know what I mean? It took me a while to kind of, come around to.
Well, Jason just got on as well. It was the same thing, but I mean, it's because of keeping a low profile. I get that, and then the love-hate with social media. But hopefully, what comes out of this is what we find typical with most of the guests is that. Because you came on, you're probably going to get a following of individuals who would love to reach out and talk to you about your experiences, things that you might be able to help them with in coaching or mentoring. And, hey, I'm getting ready to go and get an option 40, what was that like, or, whatever types of questions and stuff that come out of that. So that's why I'm glad you brought it up, because it might be a way to which you're comfortable in them giving you direct messages without giving up your cell phone number on the air here.
Yeah, it is.
Call
It's
me at,
it's an awesome tool. It really is. Like I had, I had somebody through, social media and reach out and was like, they were asking me about like workworkouts, you know?
Yeah. Could be anything. Yeah.
Which is kind of, funny. I feel like I'm good shape, dude, but I'm not like, definitely not in my prime anymore. But, it was like, hey, what can I do? And my advice was, I like to keep it simple. I was like, run with a gas mask on, like just
pro mask run.
Like the old pro mask run, man.
They're available on Amazon.com.
Keep it simple. You don't need to buy crazy machines, man. Just throw a gas mask on and go run up a hill for a while.
Take the charcoal off of it. Throw up in your mask a few times. It'll fix you right up. Been there, done that.
Yeah. So I was like growing up boxing. We used to wear trash bags for like workouts.
Oh yeah.
You cut out the head hole, you cut out the armholes, and like. Just keep it simple, man. Anyway, but it's an awesome tool. But yeah, people can hit me up on that, or But the book's been really cool. Just seeing it, really take off. I think some of that was, it's just been out for just a few months now. But the nonfiction side I'd written before, but I think with the war, kind of ending in Afghanistan and. Obviously, a lot of the books set over there, and it's about the journey, like the journey. I think that many people that were in the GWAT really at its height, kind of the arc of that, and some of the dark places you go, and then, I think, kind of the resilience, the endurance that a lot of people display, and like working through all that, and then actually coming out, better.
Yeah.
And having that become a formative experience, and not necessarily something that breaks you down. So
I hope people go out there and check it out for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I can't wait to read it.
Get in contact with you via your social media. I appreciate you coming all this way.
Yeah.
And being on the show.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this has been great, guys. I appreciate it. And I'm going to go shoot down to Benning and take some pictures.
Oh, geez.
Maybe I'll put those on social.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
I haven't seen that place.
I'm looking forward to following you. Feel free to follow me too, man, on Instagram and Facebook. I'd love to keep in touch with you.
Yeah. So, thanks, guys. This has been great.
Yeah. Likewise.